Welcome back, everyone. We hope you had a hearty lunch and are ready for our last session of this momentous event. Session 9 is on typography and design projects.
Mr. Sujit Patwardhan, sir, is a renowned graphic designer. He has served on several important committees such as Maharashtra State Environment Protection Committee, High Court Committee for overseeing building permissions granted in Mahabaleshwar and Panchgani. Currently, he is a part of Mudra Graphics in Pune, India.
Mr. Patwardhan's huge contribution through print, etc., masks his connection with a family that has in itself contributed to a public life in more than one way. Just to give a few examples, some of them: Mr. Anand Patwardhan, a filmmaker; Mr. Sudhir Patwardhan, his brother and a painter by profession; Ms. Jiu Patwardhan, who is again a filmmaker, and so on.
Now, Mr. Sujit Patwardhan is the chairperson of this session, who requests Sir to kindly say a few words.
Thank you for this undeserved welcome, but I am very happy to be here, and I have been attending the morning session, and I am very happy to see this place full of energy, and all the presentations which I attended were very interesting. So now, without taking too much time, I am taking charge here and sitting down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. We do appreciate your presence. And our first paper for this session, ladies and gentlemen, is called Title Design in Hindi and Bengali Film Posters by Mohammad Shahid and Professor D. Udaya Kumar, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, India.
We request both the sirs to please take the mic and kindly start with the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch, and here I am going to present a paper on title design, Hindi and Bengali film poster. So in coming few slides, this one, it's not happening. So in coming few slides, I will take you through Hindi and Bengali film posters, and we will see the role of typography in both of these posters. Content are structured in this way: introduction, methodology. We will be discussing about letter form structure and its meaning making, property, expressive typography in title design, and is conclude with reference. The purpose of study is basically looking at film posters from two perspectives. One is pan-Indian culture, where with release of each Hindi film posters are distributed across the country and even across the world, catering different group of people classified on the different social and economical basis and cultural background. And second one is a local context dealing with Bengali film posters, which are intended to deal with a specific segment of people having same cultural backgrounds. From the beginning of Indian cinema, different tools has been adopted by these both of the industry to advertise and publicize their films. During the early period, print media dominates the mode of publicity, and because of this we can find a lot of booklet of film songs, stories, lobby cards, handbills, and of course posters, where posters become the most significant and dominating form. Both in Bengali and Hindi film posters, it features two parts. One is visual and another is textual. and textual content can be again classified featuring the leading character's name, film title, credit blocks, and sometimes taglines. Before going for the detailed discussion about the both film poster, we should just look at the nature of film produced by this both industry. When we talk about the Hindi film posters, and of course for the people who came from the different country, I would mention like Bollywood is defined by the Hindi film posters, an industry based in Bombay, and Tollywood is an industry of Bengali film poster which is based in Calcutta. So when we will look at a film poster, especially Hindi film poster, most of the films are melodramatic natures, full of actions, romance, social fictions and family plots. And this provides a multi-genre perspective, making it difficult to place it in a single category. This multi-genre film provides a lot of challenges to film title designers as well, whereas in other hands, the film belongs film from the Bengali film industry. It's falls under the culture. It falls under parallel cinema, which is defined by its serious nature, realism, and naturalism. So, coming at the Hindi film posters, obvious from the title, Hindi film poster are publicity material for the Hindi movie, which is produced in the Bollywood, and which is also a biggest industry in the country and across the world. This poster trend was started long back in 1913 when first silent Hindi film was produced by Dada Saheb Phalke, which is Raja Harishchandra. There are some posters from beginning to like the famous film posters you can see. Poster has gone through significant changes over the time with the influence of the Western culture and technology. In terms of Hindi cinema, cultural and social diversity throughout the country gives an idea to distributors to divide the audience in different segments. One is big metro cities like Bombay, Delhi, Chennai, Kolkata, and second one is like the smaller towns and interiors, and third segment scatter the films of low budget, also the semi-porn film. So this way the distributor have categorized these films so that it will be easier for them to advertise it and market it easily. This led to designing of different posters for each sector, keeping in mind their taste and desire, which ultimately leads a designer to play with the design elements of the poster. These are again some posters from Bollywood. You can see the different title, style, and the way it has been represented to reflect the theme of the films. When we came to the Bengali film posters, history goes back to 1919, just 6 years after the Hindi film posters. This industry has been marked by famous directors like Satyajit Ray, which is a well-renowned person in the parallel cinema, Mrinal Sen, Bimal Roy, Ritwik Ghatak. Title design in early period was considered as one of the important features of the film posters, and very artistic and expressive letter forms in the calligraphic strokes were popular. It is interesting to see that title design, most of the Satyajit Ray posters were done by him only. This shows the sensitivity and importance of the title design in the film posters. These are some film posters from Bengali cinema. In case of Bengali film posters, designer has to deal with the people of single segments, providing an ease for the poster design. They have more freedom to explore with the title, with the typeface. And again, Kolkata is famous for its unconventional street art. Still today, if you will visit Kolkata, you can see a lot of posters on the street, along with the multinational posters like the global posters from multinational company. Till today, when a lot of restrictions has been made regarding the billboards and signboards, Placement in the public area, street culture is following the same conventional parameters. We can't neglect the effect of globalization on the film posters. Globalization has major effect on the cultural transformation in India. Economic upgradation, social and political changes are the major force behind it. The exchange of ideas between the people of different cultures are evident since the long period. As a dominant medium of film publicity, poster has seen radical transformations by the influence of new technology and the proliferation of the visual culture in 20th century. Similar effect can be seen in the title design, and this new technological advancement and upgradation of design education provide an opportunity to designer to explore title design more a bit in form of the style, texture, color, composition, and even expressive typography. You can see the first one is the Hollywood film poster, and the similar effect has been adopted in the Hindi film poster, which is Kahin Din Kahin Raat 1967. So the influence has been taken from the other film industry also. This is a snap I have given, like in this era there are a lot of billboards and then advertisement elements. So you can see this is a theater featuring a film, and on the more prominent part is the Lux Cozy in innerwear advertisement. So this kind of culture where poster has to cope with all the parameters and the other things. For methodology, poster collection, these are the step has been taken out: title analysis using semiotic approach, interpretation, and then conclusion. Basically, I have taken the Barthian visual semiotic approach, which is denotation, and it's talk about the layering of meaning, and one layer is denotation and another is connotation. The key idea behind his visual semiotics is layering of meaning. The first layer is the layer of denotation, which deal with the who and what is being represented, where the second layer is the layer of connotation, which inquires about the value and idea expressed through what is represented and through the way in which it is represented. The same approach has been used to analyze the layer of meaning given by the letter forms in the film titling. It will be significant to discuss the Saussurian dyadic model again, which states that sign is a whole which results from the association of signifier and signified. The relationship between these two is known as signification, and whole meaning evolved because of this relationship and sign within the systems. So these two approaches has been adopted. Now looking at the letter forms and individual letter forms and its characters. Individual letters act as a building block of the title design when where it forms and dimension play an important role in communication of the film theme. Looking from the Barthe visual semantic point of view, the denotation of individual letter is an unproblematic issue. Knowing the written language ensures each viewer to read and understand the literal meaning of the title. But the constructive meaning of the title gets generated through the understanding of message, which is hidden somewhere in the style and structure of the font. This could be further understood by these two examples. One is the historical Razia Sultan film, came in 1983, and another is family drama, which is Hum Saath Saath Hain, 1999. For Hum Saath Saath Hain, readers are encouraged to understand the phrase and relate it with the family structure in the Indian society, whereas in Razia Sultan, along with the name, a symbolic meaning has been represented to the viewer based on the context of time, popularity and strength of the main character of the film. Here individual letters has been designed and arranged in such a way that it looks like entrance of a fort and present a feel of Sultan. Looking at the pan-Indian culture before designing the Bollywood film poster, designer would look at two parameters. First one is our posters are made for different cultural segments, catering different group of people across the country. And second one is most of the Bollywood films belongs to multi-genre. So it's very difficult for a designer to design a poster, a title which can cater at so many cultural diversity in India. And this provides some constraints to designer. One is that poster is going to be he has to look that poster is going to be distributed all over the world, all over the India, irrespective of the regional languages. And another is because of limitation of technology and fading of vernacular approach. Vernacular approach means where initially it was the hand painted and individually crafted, but now it's a digital technology has taken part of it. These are some timeline. When in the beginning Hindi film posters, the minimum exploration has been done, like font were very plain, monocolor and less explored. And here you can see in the below pictures, in the beginning when the hand painting style was dominant, we can see a different counter spaces in the similar letters across the title in a single title. So, but this is the beauty of that period. When we analyze individual letter and title design of Hindi film poster across the timeline, we can see that there are very least variation in the letter form. The variations are mainly in the term of orientation, perspective and thickness of the font. Here I have taken letter A and just analyze it, the change in the form structure of the letter A. The variation is in the term of orientation, perspective and thickness of the font. The variation in the individual font in the title can be noticed in terms of stroke thickness, size and counter space in the poster up to 70s. There might be one strong reason behind this. Variation is all posters till 1970s were hand painted and artists designed the title manually, and in the most of the cases without using grid. The three-dimensional lettering style dominated the title design during 1950s to till 1980s. And some of the exact examples which is not here are the Mughal-e-Azam.
Excuse me, I have to just remind you of the time. You are nearing the completion. Thank you.
So this kind of transition you can see. In contrast to Bollywood in cinema, where posters were designed to cater different culture, Tollywood film posters are centered to one specific cultures. And this would probably provide a huge opportunity for experimentation and exploration with the Bengali letters. And also we can see the influence from the Shantiniketan, because the industry is flourished with the designer which are highly design sensitive and got education from Shantiniketan. These are the letters where letter K and B and then N has been analyzed, and we can see in this slide like the variations were explored a lot in the term of the Bengali film poster, where a typical letter has been transformed in an abstract form. In letter K we can see a Hindi K, and then it has been modified in a different way. Whereas in the Hindi film poster title like letter A, though we can see some of the semiotic approach like the disco dancer, A taken from the film Disco Dancer, the effect. So this way, coming to expressive typography, it is used to express idea, style, emotion in form of the convenient way. Till 1960s, the Hindi film poster witnessed very little exploration in terms of use of external typography. By the end of 70s and 60s and early 70s, artists have started to explore with the typography. You can see like the Angur, you can feel of like it. And then there is Singhdwar, it's a Bengali film poster. And we can see a lot of expressive typography in Bengali film poster. You can look at the title and you can relate it with the story or the theme of the film. These are some more examples from both the industry. There's some of the expressive typography. So it needs more time to discuss and analyze. So these are the conclusions. Title design has a significant role, though all we know. In the beginning, the variations are very minimal, but the advancement in technology and upgradation of design knowledge enhance the possibility of exploration. we can relate it, we can see the local context has given a more opportunity to explore instead of coming to the national or the pan-Indian culture context where we have to deal with the different culture of peoples. Technology has played a huge role in mass production of the posters and opened up the opportunity for more exploration in the form of color textures, but it has limited the skill of the creativity. These are my references. Thank you so much. Open for your...
Though we have exceeded the time, I think it was felt that if there are a few questions, they could be asked immediately at the end of each session. So if there are a couple of questions, I think we are open for them.
Hi, sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, you said that Bollywood, we all know that Bollywood caters to multiple cultures.
Yeah.
So this is just out of curiosity, that is that the reason why Bollywood posters transliterate all titles instead of translating them into English? Like Lagan is written as L-A-G-A-N and not the literal meaning of Lagan in English. So
Yeah. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, so
That's it?
I wanted to know that is there another way to cater to such a diverse audience, or like did you find anything in your
Listen, in some way, it's an easier way because catering at different cultural people from different culture. So you can see like all titles are in a Hindi language. Most of the 90% of the Hindi films feature a Hindi language title, but using the Latin script. So it's a way we have adapted, like the easier way, because Latin scripts later everyone in initial stage we can see there are trilingual titling. Hindi, English, and Urdu, three came together, but later it becomes like only the English. So it's just a way to come up with the difficulties of putting different titles and making viewers to understand instead of giving a single title and which can be understood easily and can be related easily with the people. That's the way, I think.
Thank you.
So this is one way, and there will be so many reasons behind this.
I'm sure there's a way to incorporate vernacular type of with a Latin script.
Yeah, but nowadays, vernacular style has been almost vanished. Now we had a technological advancement, and in a way we have a lot of freedom to explore with the color and with the the style, and we can look which will look good or bad. In the initial stage, it was manual crafted, so each has an individual effect, taste, and its own style. So that we can't neglect.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I know.
As well, because there's a lot of work going on and there's this avid interest in Indian cinema, which is not really interest in Indian cinema, it's basically interest in Bollywood. And today there's this great zeal and hurry to equate Bollywood with Indian cinema. And you have filmmakers like Janu Barwa or filmmakers from Kerala, etc., say that that's not Hindi cinema, that's not pan-India, nor are we local. It's none of that, because Bengali cinema from the 70s or 60s was not local. You know, if anybody knew about cinema in those days, internationally, it was actually Bengali cinema. So these terms of discourse need to be rethought and then mapped on to the visual graphics, the style, etc., of the posters that emerged, because it goes with the mindset of those cultures, right?
Sure, ma'am.
So the literature from the culture, the other forms of visual expression from those cultures, the performing arts from those cultures will get translated into the posters.
Yes, ma'am.
So I just request that the terms of discourse be rethought. Thanks.
Yeah, sure, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, if there are any more questions, otherwise we are a little bit falling behind in time. If there aren't, we can go to the next session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next paper is called Lankan Arts in a Font by Chaitya Munasinghe from AOD International Design Campus, Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, Chaitya ma'am could not be present today, so Sir Patham Eguruvatta would be presenting her work instead.
We request sir to please start with the presentation and kindly take over the mic.
Use these?
Yeah, just the arrow keys. Here the pointer.
Up down.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the first slide, right?
Yeah. Hello everybody. As you were briefed, I wasn't involved in this project. I'm presenting behalf of this beautiful girl. She couldn't unfortunately make it here, but she's watching the presentation online. So, hi. So basically, the project is called Lankan Arts in a Font. So basically, arts in the sense in this project, it was identified as what is like Sinhala decorative patterns. So basically, what are these Sinhala decorative patterns? These decorative patterns, as you can see, were they can be seen from 17th century to 18th century paintings, temple paintings, Buddhist temple paintings. So you can see like different elements like flowers, and they have different traditional names. These small elements were basically base for the project. So what happened was later on these small elements were extracted from these original paintings and were used in different contexts, like decorative decorations, some other decorations also. Right now, if you look at Sri Lankan communication materials, whenever there is like some Buddhist festival or like Vesak festival or something, basically these patterns are used again and again sometimes, but now it's vanishing bit by bit. So the problem is, as you can see, these Sinhala decorative patterns, which is a blend of elegance, authenticity and uniqueness, is sort of being swept away from the existence. And one of the basic problems Chaitya had was like she was focused on, there were just few of these designs were overused again and again. People were not aware about the diversity of these patterns. So she interestingly chose this pathway to sort of approach this audience, like designers and who are conscious about these issues through a medium of a font or a typeface. So this is basically what she came up at the end. It's called Samprada. Samprada meaning in Sinhala is the tradition. I don't know what it. I think it's a common word, roots lie in Sanskrit or something. I'm not knowledgeable about that. So the aims and objectives of the study, as you can see, create a display font which is a blend of English and Latin and Sinhala decorative patterns, and present it as a unique solution which would bring awareness to Sinhala decorative patterns. So basically, it wasn't about making just these patterns just pop into your eyes, but make it a working solution, like a working font that would be used again and again, so that way making a dialogue about that. Striking a balance between legibility and Sri Lankan identity while blending it with straight and lined English letters, detail the subtle painstaking process which gave birth to this one-of-a-kind decorative font. She was really keen about making this font, like making people understand the work that has been put into these patterns, suggesting techniques that could be used to promote it. Scope and limitations. Limited to Sinhala decorative arts, in Sinhala is Mostara. So basically, this was her final project presented at Northumbria University. So within that time frame, she had to use her limited knowledge on these patterns. But she went into some research. She went into these temples and documented some of the designs and used existing documentation on these Sri Lankan patterns. Methodology followed. Observation and initial creation, comparison and dissection. I think I'll just show you what are the steps were rather than words. So basically, this is the observation and initial creations. So she just looked at the different elements and extracted elements, and right away just created sketches rather than going into dissecting the designs and trying to understand it. She just took elements and rapidly it was a rapid development. So this is the first one she came up with. From what I remember, I was in her class as well. So her initial feedback was it has this sort of Victorian feeling. It was really something that she didn't want to focus on. So the second stage, I'm sorry, I can't remember what the title was. Comparison and dissection. So basically comparing different elements and dissecting it to extract and create a more working solution. Third one was trying to sort of achieve this balance between the curved lines and the straight curved lines of the Sri Lankan patterns and the straight lines of the Latin script. So these are the sketches from that stage. And then she was struggling with deciding on the best suitable line widthness for the font to be it a display font. It could be displayed in like different sizes, so it was a challenge for her, but she set for this thickness that you saw. So different explorations on how it could be implemented, how it could be used in different contexts to express different feelings. And the final result, this is the full character set she developed. And techniques to promote. So as I told you, this was her final project submission. So she had to develop different methods and different materials to promote the project. So as you can see, it has this modern and she managed to get this modern feeling, also while being faithful to the original design and original craftsmanship of the project. And there's one of her plans was to set up this website where it will document each letter and each different elements which was used for the letters. So it would be a documentation process as well. And these were different materials that she developed. And this is the title. So if you have any questions, you can email her. This is her email. Thank you.
I think all of us appreciate the way he has been able to present it without being the person who did this work, and I would like to congratulate him because he's done it very well. It's not easy. And also, I would like to appreciate on a personal level, I think the design of that letter form where she's striving to combine the curvy Victorian so-called style of the Sinhalese traditional design with more modern approach. I think she's managed to do it quite successfully. I thought the column on which it was shown in the phase of publicizing it was quite nicely done. That was my personal observation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, our next paper presentation is called Technique for Optimization of Font Color in Subtitling of Modern Media by Mr. Dhwanil Patel and Mr. Ojas Deshpande from Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, India. But due to the absence of Mr. Patel and Mr. Deshpande, we are moving ahead with a third paper presentation.
Our third paper presentation for this session is called Babuchak, Gujarati Display Font by Jalpa Shah from Rachna Sansad College of Applied Arts, Mumbai, India.
We kindly request ma'am to please address us with the presentation.
Use up and down arrow. You have pointer. You have pointer. You need to pointer.
Good afternoon, one and all present here. I'm Jalpa Shah presenting Babuchak Gujarati Display Font. I have created an experimental type inspired by Gujarat's culture. Here's the logo created. As I am a little crazy for Bollywood, I have particularly made this slide. When a Bollywood movie starts, the title is shown in 2 languages, hence I have created a similar look. Gujarat, as you all know, is located on the northwest coast of India. It is often said that one can take Gujarati out of Gujarat, but not Gujarat out of Gujarati. This is a bit about Gujarat. Father of Indian independence, Mahatma Gandhi was born in the capital of Gujarat, that is Gandhinagar. The Gujarati script is a variant of Devanagari script. Okay, I'm sorry. The script is a variant of Devanagari script and it is differentiated by the loss of horizontal line and a few other modifications in the characters. As far as religion is concerned, Lord Krishna is the main deity followed. Most of the population here belongs to Hindu community. Navratri, yes, the most enthusiastic and liveliest festival of all, is celebrated worldwide. The dance is performed in circles and is celebrated to worship goddess Durga. Kite flying is celebrated to welcome the sun after the cold winters. Kai Po Che, a common mantra enchanted, particularly said when one cuts the rope of the other kite flying, with a lot of energy and fun. I know you all just had your lunch and the cuisine in the image is not tempting, but as of now, but I must say Gujarati cuisine is a must try. My main objective of designing the font was to create something iconic for Gujarat's culture. The characters individually should carry the state's culture well. Okay. It is a myth that a Gujarati woman after the age of 30 develops obese bottoms. Though this is not for all, so don't take it personally. This exceptionally weird myth became an inspiration for the skeleton of the font, which is round and curvy. From the diverse culture, few aspects were taken into consideration like festivals, religion, architecture, cuisines, embroidery, etc. The characters were developed considering the above research. Below are the few sketches that were developed, and as you all can see, the 5th sketch as circled was the final sketch selected. Here are the few digital outlines of the Babuchak font. I have taken one example to explain the process of making an alphabet. After developing the sketch, the outline was made digitally and the reference image for inspiration was added. So here's the colored version developed and the entire alphabet. The eye, as you all can see in the image, the nose ring, pachedi or the dupatta that was worn by Durga Ma, etc. inspired from her. Letter Ch is inspired from Lord Krishna. This alphabet is treated like a Gujarati bride. Panetar is a red and white 6 meters long sari worn by the bride during the wedding ceremony. Modhera temple of Gujarat is known for its beautiful, intricate architectural carvings. Here's the final letter that I developed. These characters of Babuchak font are inspired from Pithora art. The art is made on walls, generally representing the joy and the celebration of a family. These are an inspiration from kite flying festival, as I explained you all earlier. Patola silk is a famous fabric from Patan. This fabricated silk saris were worn by Rajputs and the other royalties. The saris are very expensive and it takes minimum 6 months to make one sari. Ribari embroidery patterns and styles are a source of inspiration for this set of alphabets. Yes, of course, the famous Gujarati cuisine is an inspiration for the numbers from 0 to 9. It is often said that Khandvi, Khakra, Dhokla, Patra, a day keeps the doctor away. I would even like to share with you all one of the biggest tension of a Gujarati is where to eat, what to eat and with whom to eat. Considering the research on the state's culture, the characters of Babuchak were created differently with above aspects as an inspiration. The various graphic elements along with the colors have been used to create individual characters. So this was the entire font developed. I even have the print of the entire font, so in case if anyone's interested, could just come and approach and I would love to show the print. So yeah, here's the print. Thank you. The applications. The applications of the font were designed keeping in mind the nature of the subject. As Babuchak is purely an experimental display type, upon using the alphabets in smaller sizes, would look mashed up and the characters would lose its identity. As every Gujarati is fond of playing cards, here's an application of designing playing cards and its package. Babuchak book comprised of a detailed view of every character and an explanation about the same. This book was particularly created in order to make it a little easier for a person to understand the Babuchak font in detail. I have the book as well. You all can come and approach me. Actually, I have all my applications because I was very excited for this. So I've got everything in case if you all are interested, you all can come and see the applications. I was just scared to display it, so yeah. This is a branding done for Choksi. Choksi is a surname particularly common in Gujarat, and this is the branding for a farsan shop. The brand continued to have khakra packs. Khakra is nothing but wheat crisps. This is the only low-calorie snack amongst the Gujarati cuisine. The two flavors included Jeeru khakra and Sada khakra. The Jeeru is the black cumin seeds for people who don't know, and Sada is the plain flavor. Unfortunately, I couldn't have the ghagra with me. So that's the package design. Yeah. So just the prints of the same. The badges and the keychains design. I would like to tell you all what the badges read. The first badge reads "Let's go," so that is "Halo" in Gujarati. The second badge reads "Dobo," that is "mad" in Gujarati. The third badge reads "Shu tu mane prem karse," that is "Will you love me?" So, and the keychains read "Maro baap fakir nathi." That means my father, I mean, he is a good businessman. He is not just a layman. And yeah, the other reads "Kai poche" and "Lapet." So these are the front and the back designs of the keychain. The back designs to publicize. Coming to the conclusion, for the best view, it is advisable to use the characters in larger point sizes. And hope the journey was enjoyable and not boring. And that says "Aujo." And so this. I'm not going to explain this slide because I've already explained all the letters. So it's not good. It's going to be boring now. So yeah, thank you. And yeah. I would like to thank Typography Day 2012 for giving me this beautiful opportunity for showcasing my work. And this is genuinely, I haven't written it anywhere. Thank you. Sorry? 2014. I'm just nervous, so I just happened to fumble.
I'm sure all of us enjoyed that very interesting presentation and the way Jalpa has presented it.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to congratulate you for the way in which you did it in a nice, friendly and humorous way also. I have only one question,
Yes.
which I don't know whether you are prepared to answer, is that you have mentioned repeatedly that the type should be in a larger point size.
Yes,
Now
sir.
larger meaning, because on here we are looking at it almost like 6 inches or 1 foot tall.
Right.
And I was right from the beginning when I saw the decoration on it, I was wondering how it's going to be visible. When you say large meaning in point size, can you say what point? 30 point,
So it
30
is
point, 60 point,
yeah,
70
yeah.
point?
It is
What?
advisable to use more than 30 point size.
But even 30 point, have you seen if it's visible with all those decorative elements in it?
Sir, I have seen it on my computer.
Not computer, not computer. In a printout.
In a printout, no, I haven't seen it. Sir, but
Anyway.
I'll surely see it.
Okay. Any other questions people have? Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's our final paper presentation for this event, and it's called Other Letter, a hybrid of Sinhala and Tamil scripts, and presented by Mr. Patham Igodavatta from Sri Lanka.
We request you, sir, to please address us with the presentation.
So this project was done by me.
So this one, right?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, like this is the second time I'm presenting in front of like this much of people who are equally passionate about something, I mean, about what I'm going to talk about. First time was Chaitya's presentation and this is the second time. So the project is called the Other Letter, a hybrid of Sinhala and Tamil scripts for Sri Lanka. It's a work in progress. Actually, this project was my final year final project presented at Northumbria University for BA in graphic design. So just a question: why a hybrid script of Tamil and Sinhala? Just why not? No, there's a thinking behind it. There's a reason behind it. For me, there's some really personal issues that I'm really sensitive about this. So just to give you a sort of idea about what I'm going to talk about, I'm going to briefly do this, like briefly tell you give you a background on what Sri Lanka is and language and the conflict. What's the project brief, research, work, and what's going to happen next. So Sri Lanka, a small background. Maybe most of you should be actually familiar with the situation in the Sri Lanka with Tamil Nadu sort of heating up against us. So we have 20 million people, and we have been in Sri Lankan government has been in a 30-year-long war with LTTE or Tamil Tigers, a Tamil separatist group which used to occupy the north and eastern parts of the country. I said Tamil separatist group, but the organization is named as a terrorist organization, including Sri Lanka, a lot of other countries. And we have a Geneva human rights resolution coming up this Saturday, I guess, because apparently we have human rights issues. So just to give you an idea, this area divided from the line, actually the Tamil majority in the Sri Lanka is Sinhalese community, which speaks language Sinhalese, and the Tamil community is concentrated, which speaks Tamil, concentrated in northern and eastern parts of the country. But there are clusters of Tamil people living around different places in the country as well. So basically, to give you an idea, majority Sinhalese people speak Sinhalese, writes in Sinhalese. Sinhalese has a separate script, and Tamil is spoken by the native Tamils and also the Muslim community. So just to give you an idea about what happened in Sri Lanka, the ethnic conflict goes back to like really long time. But if I take you to the beginning of the conflict as it is now, it was because of the ethnic identifier. Normally ethnic identifier is something that we use to identify ethnicity. Basically in India it's not the language, it's basically the religion or the caste. You are defined by the caste or the religion or the area. It could be the color of your skin. In Sri Lanka, it was the language, but we couldn't. After the freedom, we got the freedom from the British ruling. We couldn't manage this different opinions and different needs of the different ethnicities, and this language, this language ethnic identifier, sort of turned into a territory-based identifier. That's how the whole conflict started. So just to give you an idea about these three incidents I've listed out to reason out my project, why do we need this sort of a project. The first one is called the Sinhala Only Bill. It's actually, this is something I made just to show you what was it like in 1956. Sri Lankan government, not the government, political parties, to get this votes of the Sinhalese majority, they promised the community to make Sinhalese the only official language of Sri Lanka. Discarding, because earlier, before 1956, the language of administration and official language was English because of the British ruling. But in 1956, with Bandaranaike coming into the power, he made the Sinhalese the only official language of Sri Lanka, which meant all the government officials had to work in Sinhalese. Everybody, in everything. Basically, imagine your birth certificate handed to you in French language, something like that. And the situation, this is really interesting thing for me. It's called the Sri conflict. Basically what happened was, with the official languages bill, Sri Lanka, the number plates of the Sri Lankan vehicles, they added this character, the Sri character, it's a Sinhalese character, to the number plates. So basically all around the country these number plates were circulated. So what happened was, people got pissed off at this. People in especially northern and eastern areas, they started vandalizing. They started destroying cars that went into these areas. You can see a single letter making this difference. So this is really interesting. This was interesting, as well as, I mean, it was shocking thing to know. So it happened both ways. Actually, all the Sinhala, all the name boards and everything in these areas, northern and eastern areas of the country, were put on tag against it. It was changed into different characters. People were killed. Around 300 people were killed in 1956. And the third one is the 1983 riots, which made most of, like, around 200,000 Tamils to flee the country to Canada, and they were the people who actually funded LTTE during the last few decades. And interestingly, there are stories about, if you now you can see what it says. So basically, Tamil doesn't have a sound ba. What did mobs were doing was, in 1983, it was just easy for them to spot the Tamils. They would just stop a vehicle, ask them to pronounce a word that has the sound ba. If you can't say baldia, so that's basically what happens. So has this situation, has it been changed? Because 2009 the war was ended. So this is basically taken from these research findings. Still 82% of the Sinhalese believed that official language of Sri Lanka is only Sinhalese. And government of Sri Lanka has done nothing to address the root causes of the conflict, thinks 26% of the Tamils. So what's happening in the post-war situation is, basically government has to build camps in order to keep these areas peacefully. That's what they're saying. And also most of the Tamils were Sinhalese they had to leave these areas, northern and eastern parts of the country, because LTTE was ruling these areas. Now they have been relocated in these Tamil concentrated areas with a huge military presence. So basically their structure is, there's a Tamil village, there's a Sinhalese village, there's a town, and there's a military camp. So this is the basic structure they are building in the north. And you can see this is the commission which government appointed to address the issues in the country. So they are basically saying people are made to transact and interact in Sinhalese against being their mother language. So basically, for the first, in connection with the first slide, it's not about why and why not. It's a problem about appearance of the language, and the solution should be a typography-based intervention. So my brief was to find a way to dissolve the ethnic tension caused by the appearance of language in conflict, combine the letters. So I figured I can do something like this, because obviously you can see there are similar elements between these two letters alone. This is Sinhala A and that is Tamil Avanna. Having the basic same roots, having coming from the same language family, these letters share a lot of common elements. So I figured combine the letters from Tamil and Sinhala that correspond to the same sound and build a common script. Guidelines were simple: simplify and evolve the script, not change it. Try to simplify it when it's possible and evolve it, not to change the whole thing. Preserve the script traditions. Be as faithful as to the original script, but have to make it possible to people to read and understand. Of course, me being a graphic designer, I have to make sure it's aesthetic. There is a aesthetic harmony, and test and test. And I used one Sinhala and Tamil font as benchmark fonts, because otherwise I would be going everywhere trying to figure out what are the strokes. Without a benchmark I couldn't do it. And I decided to develop the initial set of letters monolinear because it was easier for me, and also it's a new script. It's not a new typeface, but script based on 2 scripts. So it has to be simple for even me to understand what I'm doing. Research methodology was identifying the basic visual form of each letter. So basically I went down a few steps to the development to see if there are any similar elements between these 2 letters. As you can see, you can see like 7th AD century, it's basically the same form with small differences. So if you take U Anna and Sinhala U, this is the basic form that I identified, and next letter, it's the final glyph I developed. Not the final one, but the stage I am in right now, that's. And this is basically, I mean, just a sort of a snapshot of the project development. I looked at different typefaces there are, and I developed the sketches, and I went to people asking. The testing was not methodical, or it was not a systematic research with the time I had, but I asked people. Basically I posted on Facebook, asked my Tamil friends, went around neighborhood showing people letters. That's basically my research method. And the second one is identifying similar elements and combining significant elements. So similar elements and significant elements is 2 things, like I'll explain to you. So this was one of the exercises I did at the very beginning, just laid out the 2 letters, corresponding 2 letters, and just to see how it works together. So this is identifying similar elements. You know, the 2 dots are similar to the both letters. So that's the similar element, and I built the letter, I constructed the letter around that basic or the similar element. And this is the development of that letter, Ivanna. And identifying the significant element is basically trying to understand the basic shape that we use to identify the letter with. So basically this is used to, this pointer or this pointer or spike is used to identify the letter right away. So then I had to develop a grid for the typeface. It's still in the development, but what I had to do was I had to come up with different levels that I can cooperate with. As you can see, some corresponding letters. Now this is Ra and Ravanna, corresponding letters, but the Sinhala letter is ascending letter, and the Tamil letter is a descending letter. So how to combine this, how to manage the baseline and the height. So this is something I'm still struggling with, but I think I have a basic guideline right now to work on forward. And a unification of adding diacritics or the vowel modifiers or matras, I guess. So there are similarities between Tamil and Sinhalese, how we add the matras or the diacritics, vowel modifiers. So I try to combine this, like unify these 2 and make a new system of vowel modifiers. So there has to be a simplification of both languages. So Sinhalese has 10 aspirate letters, and there is a one-to-many phonem, grapheme, assign system. So basically it's like we have in Sinhalese we have 2 nas, 2 las, 2 las sounds, 2 las letters, and Tamil also has 3 na letters. So in an aggressive move, I had to take out some of the stuff in sake of simplifying it, but I didn't do it just according to my knowledge. I followed this documentation by one of the Sinhala authors who has been who had suggested several script reforms to Sinhalese. So I didn't study any Tamil reform proposals. I followed this Sinhala reform proposal, and I arranged it according to that. So this is basically the whole idea in one image. If you want to show it to somebody, this is what I would show. So as I said you, this was my final year submission. So these are the characters I have right now. There are lot has to be improved. There is a lot of room to be improved. This word, amma, is in Sinhalese and Tamil both means mother. So this is the perfect example that I could come up with to promote and to make people understand what it is. So basically this script cannot be used to write or express so many things, but it could be used to communicate names and place names, and also Sinhala has like 400 odd loan words from Tamil, and also we share a lot of words that we have taken from Portuguese. So these words, each and every one could be written in this this script and could be understood by both of the people. So my suggestion now, the traditional way of displaying a name place, name board would be Sinhala, Tamil and English. My suggestion is to use this in the conflict areas, in the reconciliation areas. So this would basically, initially, this could make people not feeling offended by a language. This is another example I really love. This is Triposha. It's called Triposha. It's basically a nutritional pack that is delivered to all over the country free of charge by government. So the title of this was in plain Sinhalese, big letters, and I replaced it with my typeface just to show how this simple material of communication could communicate to people the message of harmony. So whenever I'm speaking to people about my project, what I tell them is, the moment you start, if you want to see the differences, it's really easy, right? It's no matter, I can list out like 1,000 reasons why differences between myself and an Indian guy. But moment you want to see the similarities, you can just say, okay, there's nothing different between Sri Lankan and Indian. So this is sort of a new adaptation, or I mean, I've been exploring with another reverend typographer in Sri Lanka how this could be used in other variations, other typefaces. These are some just basic sketches of how this could be implemented. And so my next step would be to streamline the letters, build on them, trying to basically improve on them, and of course, systematic testing, it is needed. This was just tested with my friends and my neighbors and few people I found, but it's working. It's working, I know that. And trying to get this implemented in a real situation so I could get some real feedback on if this is receptive. I have to say that, but for my presentation, final presentation, I had to make a case that this would be receptive. So I set up this website where people can type their name in this script and, you know, share it. So I got like 600 hits in just one day when I posted it on my Facebook, and people started putting cover photos and, you know, this sort of stuff. I'm happy. In fact, I came here, I found a sponsor, and I sold posters from this project to come here to probably like 60% of my expenses were paid by selling the posters and through sponsorships to here. So I'm happy. These are my references, by the way.
Just wait. First, I'm taking advantage of my position here. I would like to first be the first one to congratulate you on, you know, this presentation somehow personifies the theme. I was told that the theme of this event is design and culture, and I think there can be no better example than what you have done.
Thank you.
And it also, I think, ties up this whole, you know, the sign of the times is that we are all working together from different parts of the world and different backgrounds, and yet we are looking at the positive and looking at what binds us rather than what differentiates us. So I think it's a very healthy sign. And taking forward the line earlier mentioned about learning from each other and, you know, collaborating rather than conflict, I think this is an excellent somehow this personifies the whole thing. So I'm very happy to be in this position to get the first chance to talk about it, and I'll give the others an opportunity to ask questions or make the observations. I think we have some
Thank you,
time
sir.
for that. Thank you.
Dear friend, you have succeeded in showing that type can bring peace.
Yeah.
A type can bring two cultures together and feel it's my own.
Thank you, sir.
So I wish you your
Thank you, sir.
next results and applications doesn't matter to you. You expressed your strong feeling in combining two cultures, two scripts, and many hearts to one cause.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Sujit very eloquently described, characterized your presentation. It reminds me of the, through read, it reminds me of the 60s when, fed up of the civil liberties movement and the Vietnamese conflict and the inability of the grown-ups to solve these problems, a bunch of youth left their homes, fed up of their parents fighting over these things, and decided to do something about it. They were called the flower children, sometimes uncharitably hippies, but they were the flower children, and you remind me of that. I oftentimes feel that students of your generation, the youth of your generation, are afraid to be political in the nicest sense of the term in their projects because they're trying to please people. And I can see that you managed to convey a very, very thorny issue, because right now the Geneva thing hangs on our head, right? It's very contentious. It's contentious worldwide. The entire world has taken sides one way or the other, and India has been ambivalent. And we've got conflict in our own backyards. And you've managed to actually take this, bring in typography, bring in culture, bring in the idea of conflict, moving towards resolution at this tender age of whatever you are, 24, 25, 23, and put everybody else to shame. I work with a bunch of Sri Lankans in Singapore. One of them is very influential. He knows the president's family, and I'm planning to take this project to him with your permission, if I can.
Thank you.
And I think you should write a nice letter with the information to this person who is now jailed for other reasons, but who has made huge financial contributions to the Tamil cause, Raj Rajaratnam, because he has a lot of time now in jail and he has a lot of money. So he'll be able to sponsor whatever is required to be done. It's just a suggestion. I think that's something you should do. Thanks.
I forgot to mention one thing. Actually, the website has all the source files, and I released this under Creative Commons license, so anybody can work on it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now we would like to request Mr. Sujit Patwardhan, sir, to kindly facilitate the paper presenters of this session for today. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mohammad Shahid.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, the second paper presenter of today, Jalpa Shah ma'am.
And now, from Sri Lanka, Mr. Igarowatta.
And ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Igodobata would also be collecting the momentum on behalf of Chaitya Munasange from Sri Lanka. Thank you so much, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to request Mr. Vinay Mundada, sir, to felicitate our chairman of this session, Mr. Sujit Patwardhan, sir.
And now, we would welcome Mr. Aurobind Patel, sir, designer and typographer, India, who will be addressing everyone as our vision addressee. We request sir to please take over the podium and kindly address everyone.
Lovely. Good evening, everyone. I'm sure you're all ready to go home, so I'll try to keep this brief and start by thanking the organizers for giving me this opportunity to be here. And it's particularly nice to be with people that suffer from the same disease that I do, which is a love for type. And it's nice to share a passion, so thanks again for the opportunity. I was told by a very reliable source that the thing that really makes God, amuses God, is people who plan. But I nonetheless went ahead and did some planning for this talk. So the first thing is we're going to stroll through time and space. A bit random, but that's the only way I think I can share my experiences with you. The next thing is we're going to meet characters, and I'm going to delve more with people than type, because I think we've seen enough type here. And the kind of people we're going to deal with is enablers, people who made it possible for us to do what we're doing today. Because without their efforts, their brains, we wouldn't have half the tools we have today that's make doing what we do so easy and convenient. I'm also going to talk about machines, some of which I use, some of which kind of help me understand type. Because I strayed into type in a very unconventional way. So I didn't have a conventional training in typography. I kind of swayed into it quite by accident. But things happened in my life that exposed me to things, situations, that allowed me to kind of really get into it. And it's something that's never left me. And some of the things I'm going to talk about, which is the people, you may know. Some of the machines I'm going to look at, you may know. Some you might not. So the idea is, where do we begin? And, I thought, let's pick a fairly arbitrary date, 1872, in a country like Uruguay. And why do you think I should do that? Well, it's not that arbitrary. And, I might also jump back and forth, because the one thing that has kind of marked everything I do is a sense of confusion and lack of order. And I think going back and forth often helps. Now, this is why it's Uruguay. Any guesses who this is? It's a man I think we owe a great big debt to. It's Edward Johnston. Without what he did for us to understand fundamentals of typography, well, letter forms really, we wouldn't have the kind of revival in the understanding and the production of type that happened after him. And he was tireless. He was a tireless scholar, proponent of good type, good letter forms. This is his home. It's a place of pilgrimage, which most of us who love type and have an opportunity to be around in London, we go and see. Hermann Zapf himself a tremendous, tremendous designer and a contributor to typography. But a great tribute to Edward Johnston when he says nobody had such a lasting effect on the revival of contemporary writing as Edward Johnston. He paved the way for all lettering artists of all of the 20th century, and ultimately they owe their success to him. And we do, because people he inspired are people like Eric Gill, and everyone after, because anyone who's done anything substantial with typography in that generation came from everything he's done. His book was a classic, published in 1906. It kind of looked at the fundamental primitives of letter forms. He was very interested in sources, in history, in how we form shapes, letter forms particularly, and it had all to do with penmanship, the tools we use, and so he's researched in a meticulous way and produced this book. His classes at the Royal College were absolute works of art. His blackboards, I mean, this is what they look like. Oversubscribed, completely oversubscribed. I mean, and by the time it was finished, his blackboards would look like this. They were complete works of art. And he believed in doing. He wrote, and he was the, tireless scribe. Great guy. This inspired him when he went to understand classic Roman proportion, the Trajan inscriptions. He gave us some basic forms for how capitals were derived, rounds, three-quarter, narrow, and extra wide, and all based on the Roman Trajan inscriptions. He also went on to describe character shapes, and this becomes very important for typographers. Fundamentals such as the weight. He described the weight of type based on the thickness of the nib. So if you took a nib sideways and did 3 strokes, 5 strokes, or 7 strokes, and that would determine the height of the character. Obviously, the one that was 3 strokes would be the heaviest, the one that was 5 slightly lighter, and the one that was 7 even lighter. Pen angle, the angle at which you held the pen, determined the shape of the letter. The form of the letter, whether condensed or expanded. The number of strokes that went into making the letter. The order of the strokes. How did you start? Where do you finish? And so forth. The direction. And the speed of writing. And that he described very thoroughly. It's an example of it. So the weight, as I said, which is all right on top there. How does this work? Anyway, you can see it. On top, the 3 different weights. Pen angle. You can see the form of the letter, whether wide, condensed, extra condensed, and so forth. You see the strokes. And then you see speed, the effect speed has. When something is written in a leisurely fashion, it tends to be a little more expanded. Fast letters tend to be compressed. He also designed the typeface of the London Underground, which survives to this day. So in a way, he was a proponent of the first major corporate identity program, and that was this. It was helped that there were enlightened people in London Underground who kind of saw what he was trying to do and allowed him the opportunity to do it. This typeface has been revived recently, digitized. A friend of mine, Aichi Kono, was responsible for it. And it survives. It survives brilliantly to this day. The London Underground uses it. All the maps and everything is done in it. The symbol Edward Johnston did survives to this day. Now we'll jump back to 1864. Why 1864? Well, in 1864, in this place, that's Pune, the Brits started a school. They started it for the children of the British Army officers. It was called the Bishop's School. Its motto was thorough. They really rubbed it in. You had to be thorough about everything you did. So this was, about 8 years before Edward Johnston was born. I had the good fortune or the misfortune or whatever you want to call it to attend this school many years later. And the one thing they did there, probably a hang-up of the way the Brits taught the children handwriting, every morning before assembly, for 20 minutes, you did this copious, mindless letter writing. And they were copybooks, Webcast copybooks. and every day you sat and wrote these things. The better part of valor is discretion. A thing of beauty is a joy forever. And I've done 5 years of this every morning. It's not anywhere in the tradition of the letter forms that Edward Johnston propagated. It's a whole different genre. But the doing and the redoing of this every day gives you a certain kind of rigor to look at form, to appreciate form, to understand why some things look sloppy, some things don't. And at the time I did it, I probably hated it because we had to use a quill pen and do it every morning. But looking back, it's probably what gave me the first bug for typography. I mean, you do this over and over again every day. It's never going to leave you, It's a nightmare. It just stays with you. So that's what happened. Now the next thing, if you're a Patel and a Gujarati, you have a genetic predisposition, which is you can't do anything other than commerce. So people like Mahendra Bhai, Dashrath Patel, these are heretics, we're outcasts. We're supposed to be making money, doing worthwhile things like owning shops and running businesses. So obviously when I finished school, art wasn't an option, or at least that's what everyone thought. And so with that in mind, I ended up studying economics. And then what do you do after economics? I guess you get an MBA. So, like most people, I tried getting an MBA, and I had very high aspirations for everything I did. So I thought maybe I'd give a shot to Harvard, but then they said they don't take people straight out of college. So I went and worked in England for 2 years. I worked for a construction company that was building roads, and I was working there as an accounts person. So I was like doing things, I don't know why I ever did it, but I did it. Anyway, it helped me get into Harvard, which is where I ended up going, to the Harvard Business School. I joined there in 1974. And the thing about Harvard is it gives you this cocky confidence that you've arrived. You can virtually do anything under the sun. Because you're with people, most of whom are terribly more accomplished than you ever were or could be. And you think, I'm rubbing shoulders with these people. I must be great. I wasn't. But I had that false sense of bravado. The first summer, when you finish the first year, you get a job, and people typically go to Wall Street and do things like that. And then among the various other things you could do was pitch for concessions which were owned by Harvard universities as businesses and run them that summer. And I pitched along with a few other people for a concession to publish a job search guide for MBAs. And the deal is this, you publish the thing, what you earn is advertising revenue. What you have to do is give the top 10 business schools in the country free copies of this, and whatever money you make is yours. But because the concession is owned by Harvard University and it has a tradition, this thing's published every year forever and ever, you walk in with that piece of paper in a bank and they give you money. So you literally start business on day one. Your content is virtually free because every MBA that's finished, that graduated from a B school, writes for you on what it is to be a banker or running a chemical company. So that's all your content. You get advertising and you print it, and great, you make money. Now, we all divided our responsibilities, and for some odd reason I said, let me try production and design. I'd never done anything like this. And again, the same typical cocky business school confidence. I call up the design director of Harvard Business Review, and I said, I introduced myself, and I said, would it be possible for you to teach me everything you know about design in one afternoon? Because I'm in a bit of a rush. We have to publish this job search guide. And it just so happens he was an extremely patient man, and these are those confluences in life, You never expect that they happen. He was an academic. He was the dean of a design school in southeastern Massachusetts. His name was Dietmar Winkler. He was a German, a tremendous typographer. He was quite amused. He called me in, and he gently explained that, stuff like this you don't learn in an afternoon. It takes a lifetime. And anyway, so he gave me some basic training, well, not quite training, guidelines on how I go about doing something like this. And I got utterly fascinated by the process. And at the end of the summer, I said, yeah, I don't want business school. I love this. I'm going to pursue this. So I went back to Dietmar Winkler and I said, look, I've never studied art. I've never studied design. Would you consider taking me as a student in your school? You know, I'll do anything. So he thought about it. He said, okay, I'll take you as a special student. And that's what I did. I went in there as a special student and I studied design. But then, coincidences. I started reading a lot about type because Dietmar Winkler kind of said, you know, the thing about typography is you need to understand the roots. So one of the books he recommended was Daniel Berkeley Updike's Printing Types. And as again, this is another sign from God. I read the preface and look what it says. These things were done as lectures at Harvard Business School in 1916. And I said, this is a sign. I'm doing the right thing. So I think I was set. What I didn't tell you earlier was that I'd borrowed money to go to business school, and it's expensive business even when I went there. And when you take the loans, they're based on the fact that you're going to finish business school and you're going to earn a lot of money. And so you pay it back very quickly. Now, I went to design school. I wasn't going to earn anything like that. So I had this huge mountain of debt in front of me. But I was loving what I was doing. So I finished design school and I head out. And the thing I learned was, what do? You follow your dream. You need to be committed, but don't take yourself too seriously. I think irreverence is a great thing to have all through your life, because the minute you take yourself too seriously, it just falls apart. I think taking risks is very important. Otherwise, it's terribly dull. And try to get paid for having fun. I get paid for having fun, and I'm really enjoying it. I don't make anywhere near the money the people I went to school with at business school, but I think I'm having a lot more fun than them. So after business school, I head out to New York. That's where everyone goes. You chase your dreams in New York. I got very lucky. I got a job. But then I was also facing this huge mountain of debt. I did my math. I said, huge debt, one job, huge trouble. Huge debt, two jobs, slightly less trouble. So I said, what do I do now? So my first job was godsend. I ended up working for Esquire magazine, which was just acquired at the time by two really amazing people. A man called Milton Glaser, was a brilliant designer, and a guy called Clay Felker. Together, these two had started the genre of city magazines. New York Magazine is what they'd started, and made it a very, very profitable venture. There was no notion of a city magazine before that. And a wily Australian called Murdoch came from the back door and acquired it. I mean, he did all kinds of maneuvers. So suddenly, these two very brilliant people who started this magazine were left without a thing to do. And so they bought this magazine. And I don't know, luckily I managed to get a job there. So the two guys were Milton Glaser, who's smiling out there. That's Clay Felker. The lady on the extreme right is Catherine Graham, who was the publisher of the Washington Post, and the lady in the middle is her daughter, who was a journalist at Washington Post. Catherine Graham's father and family were they published the Post in New York, very powerful publishing background. So working for Milton Glaser was like working for God at that time. I mean, he was just the most amazing designer. People will remember him. He did that poster years ago. Amazingly talented man. And that was a great break. This is the man who bought them out. And that's Clay Felker there. That's Rupert. Rupert Murdoch had an ability to kind of go and get into countries and look at assets, as he said, that were undervalued, and acquire them. And he did that. He did that in New York. He acquired newspapers in New York. Later on, we crossed paths again in England, where he bought the Times newspaper, the Sun, and so forth, and amassed this huge media empire. Huge. I mean, now it's 20th Century Fox is part of it. Another guy I ended up meeting in New York because he was art director of New York Magazine after Clay Felker and all left, was this man Roger Black. Wonderful guy. Roger, larger than life character, passionate about typography, completely passionate. He could think big. So from him I learned how to think big. He never thought anything as impossible. So this was days before digital typography. Roger was commissioning custom fonts. He designed Rolling Stone magazine. I mean, he'd get people to draw revivalist types and make the most exquisite pages. It cost a fortune, but he had the ability to convince the publishers it was the way to go. And he managed. Extremely generous. I mean, I was a piss poor, immigrant with 2 jobs, trying to pay off debts. Roger was on this fat expense account. He loved food. He'd take me out for lunch, which was always very nice. My night job. This is a little teaser of the kind of things I did every night. This is a machine called a phototypositor. That was incredibly popular in New York because this was the heyday of display typography. Words were sold by, this display type was sold by the word, and enormous effort went into setting it, putting it down, spacing it, and so forth. So this is what the whole gadget looks like. It's really smelly things, the things on the side, chemicals. There's a spool on top which has a film master of the font. These things on the side, the wheels advance paper, and then you press that lever to expose a character, and you can size this. But staring into this every day for many hours, you see characters in isolation, single letters, and you really begin to appreciate form. I mean, I really learned to look at type through this, because you look at individual forms completely isolated, and then you expose that one thing, and then you advance it to do the next. And in this, you learn spacing. So I couldn't have found a better way of learning spacing. And after you did this, the whole thing was set together. And then you cut and paste this on a board, on a thing called mechanicals, which is what they did. And then you would further refine the spaces if they didn't look right. You'd cut it up, move it about. And the things we take for granted now, because current tables are built into fonts, you don't even think of it, you just type it. You didn't. I mean, you really labored over every character, every word, many, many times. So it teaches you something. It teaches you to identify fonts, because you get these sloppy-looking tracings from famous art directors. They don't have time because they've had a long lunch. They're completely sloshed when they send this out in the evening. And you have to make sense of it and send it back the next day. I mean, occasionally you'll get really excellent things. These were called comps, where someone has rendered the exact trace of the type they want, precisely the size they want. So after you'd finished setting it and mounting the whole thing, if you laid the tracing paper on it, it was exactly the way the guy wanted it. But those were few and far between. Generally, scribbles, send it out to the type house, and someone out there needs to figure out how to refine it. And so I did this for many years. And this job allowed me many advantages. One of which was I could work there after hours and do freelance work. So the thing that cost a lot in those days, which is, reproducing photo mechanicals, I had none of that. I had no type costs. I could do all of that myself. I had 0 cost. The owners of this type shop were very generous that way. So it helped. So I could really supplement my income. Typositor ads always had these pretty women. And I'm not trying to be sexist. There were no women ever working on Typositor, because you reeked. At the end of each night, you were smelling of hypo. I mean, it was horrible. And I don't think I've never, in all the time I spent in these type houses, seen a lady working there. They came in much later when you got photo typesetting and so forth. So the fonts you got on this were a huge selection. I mean, really nice display stuff. Most of them are knockoffs, because I don't think there was any regard for font design and so forth. So these were all made redrawn. See, people this business was around 46th and 45th Street in New York on the east side, and it was full of these type shops, many of them. There's one called Photo Lettering Inc., run by the man in the middle, Ron Thaler. The man sitting down there is Herb Llewellyn, who did Llewellyn Graph and various other avant-garde. This is Aaron Burns. These three ended up forming what is now known as ITC, International Typeface Corporation. And they were extremely generous people. I mean, you could walk up to them, and if you didn't know which particular font it was, and they'd have time, I mean. And it was a treat being around people like this and having access to them. This is Herb Llewellyn, who was very good. I mean, he really could draw. But the other thing he tended to do was he cut up letters a lot after he had drawn them, and he'd stick it, so all that kind of composition. So this was like cutting edge display stuff at the time. Herb Llewellyn was around. So early cuts of CompuGraphic, which was okay for continuous text, but not display stuff. Huge devices. Look at the materials you need to run it. I mean, chemicals, film, and so forth. After that, I got a opportunity to return to India and work for India Today. It was a family-owned newspaper, a magazine really, and it was ripe for change. And when I say ripe for change, it offered various opportunities because the people who owned it also owned Thomson Press, which is one of the country's largest offset printing presses. They had a tradition of doing a lot of fine book work. They used to export a lot of book setting overseas. So they understood good typography. They were serious users of monotype for many years. And so it had all the kind of right mix of technologies. And Arun Puri owned it, said, I could come in and tinker, which was a great opportunity. So the idea is I came there and we undertook gradually various things of design changes. So we first went in for some typesetting changes. We upgraded to what was next, what was Laser Comp, a very, very good typesetter, which offered us a lot of excellent typography. So we did it in incremental ways. So I was there 4 years, and in the 4 years, and the owners were also not afraid of investments because they owned this huge press. They didn't mind making substantial investments in pre-press. And he took a very bold decision to introduce India's first complete pagination system. And it's a thing called ATEX, which was like, at the time, cutting edge. And I had, again, a good opportunity and good fortune to get trained on it, and I was sent off to Boston to work on it for 3 months. And it's a proprietary system. The thing allows collaborative work. Many journalists could work on it. It wasn't WYSIWYG, so what you saw on the screen is not what you got. But they used the notion of modes. So they had buttons you could say, if you wanted to invoke bold, you press something, and on that CRT screen, crude as it is, you'd get something looking bold, but that in the background would actually invoke a bold font, and you had lots of coding and formatting behind this, so that by the time the journalists were doing this and the copy was ready to come off the composition, it was pretty much formatted. So it effectively was a system that allowed journalists to do direct input, which is a very big thing. That direct input had certain tweaks behind it that allowed them to actually style it. So, when they invoke some codes, the thing would be body copy, or it would be a headline, or it would be an intro. So a lot of the work that was typically done by compositors was suddenly compressed, and it got done by journalists. So this whole thing started compressing the time it takes to produce a page. But it also allowed you immense precision. Prior to that, every time you needed to put something in a box, everything was cut and paste. So you pasted it down. You actually drew a box by hand, and you used rotring pens to do that. And as you drew the rule, And if you slowed down at the edge, that rule would become a blob at the edge. And so you'd never get these precise boxes. And suddenly, when you have something like this, you think like, wow, you can do virtually anything. And tremendous precision. Everything is square. Everything relates. Another interesting aside, ATEX at the heart of it used a PDP-11 computer. That thing in front is one of the platters, that large platter on top that you see is a Winchester drive. And that thing was 20 megabytes, and we had 80 megabytes on the system, and you had to change them around. And, we thought we could save the universe on this. We had so much capacity. In my pocket, I'm right now carrying 16 gigabytes, and it's this much. So it just shows you how much we've advanced. This room, when it was installed at India today, and it was like you couldn't go in there with your shoes or your particular... and the other nice thing that happened here, when the first words I was asked to actually input on the system once we actually got it going was, using the Latin script of course, but Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah, because we did this whole big puja. We had this completely sanitized room, and the ATEX engineers were all there, and this Panditji comes and breaks a coconut, and they were horrified. They said, you can't do this. No, we can and we have to, otherwise the system won't work. Anyway, it worked, and it works still this day. It worked great. The first thing I did when I returned to India, and this was an act of pilgrimage, I went to meet RK. Anyone who loved type would seek him out. RK was at Ulka. So I walked into him, and, he was his usual self, bright-eyed, full of enthusiasm, always happy to meet anyone who shared his passion. His eyes were always big in wonderment. He had the enthusiasm of a child, the wisdom of a master, but the enthusiasm of a child. And he was lucid. He had a stutter. But when it came to talking, it was never a problem. I mean, because of his passion, it was never a problem. And that was great that I could see him. Because all my training and everything I did was very Latin and English centric. And I knew that was what I was most comfortable with. But I always harbored a love for everything regional, and I could appreciate it. But even if I couldn't do it, it was always nice to meet people who could, and who actually the grand masters of the tradition and doing a lot for it. In '83, there was this fantastic conference at Stanford about computer and hand and type design. And I got lucky to attend it. And it was fantastic because much of the technologies we now take for granted were nascent, and they were just about happening. And this was a gathering of fairly like-minded people, many technical, many not. I mean, there were stone carvers, there were punch cutters, and it was just the most amazing gathering of people, all discussing one thing, which is how do we port what we know as letter forms into the next generation? What are the challenges? What are the technologies? And how are we going to do it? Chuck Bigelow was the man who organized this. Another tremendous lover of type, but nice confluence of humanist training. He was at Reed College, and engineering. I mean, unique confluence of skills. And so he was there. He's designed Lucida and Wingdings, among those of you who use fonts every day. He designed this. And his main game was to actually get like-minded people together to look at what do we do with the next step with type, and where are we going from here. There was Herman Zaff. There was Don Knuth. Don Knuth had then done TeX, which is a page description language. He had also worked on Metafont, which is a font description language. RK and Knuth were very close. Knuth had done a thing with Metafont where he was where with a basic skeleton shape you could actually simulate, as it were, pressure and get different thicknesses. And this was something, pressure and pen angle, and you could get that whole rendering. And this is something RK was completely and utterly fascinated by and spent a lot of time doing. These two were the grandmasters at this at this gathering. Hermann Zapf and Knut, for being a brilliant mathematician, he had an abiding interest in typography. He would go nuts if he saw a piece of mathematics that didn't look right to him. And only he could tell what looked right in math, because he was so brilliant. And he was quite unhappy. So he decided one sabbatical off just to deal with I'm going to go and do a good math font. And he and Zapf collaborated, and they did a typeface called Euler, which to Knut's eye was a good math font. Among the other people who were at the conference, John Dreyfus, he spoke on, his was the keynote address. He spoke about the turning point in typography. But what's interesting is he actually harked back on Edward Johnston. I happen to have my Edward Johnston book with me, and I got him to sign it. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it before I came here, so I couldn't have a picture of it. In Monotype's history, there have been 3 typographic advisors. Stanley Morrison, and when he finished in 55, John Dreyfus took over, and he was there till I think 82. A man of, again, great scholarship, great refinement, wonderful man. There was Lida Lopez Cardozo and David Kindersley. David Kindersley was a student of Eric Gills, so here's a direct lineage, from Edward Johnston, a real scribe and completely dedicated to letter carving, both of them. But David Kindersley also had an obsession with spacing, which comes from carving letters and understanding proportions. And he worked with a couple of mathematicians in Cambridge and did an algorithm for spacing, which it produced great results, but like many of these things that never work out, it didn't. But it would have been nice, because he had a whole different take on how letters should be spaced. And Matthew Carter was there. He spoke on the revival of Grandjean's fonts, Galliard. And this was the treat from me. RK was there, and we were roommates. And I'll talk about Gopal Krishna next. But the one thing I discovered about RK is he never slept, because we had free computer time in the 7 days we were there. So he would be, after a day of conferences, he'd be out there hacking away all night, and he'd return at about 5 in the morning with reams of code, because everything was there was no WYSIWYG in those days. You imagine something in your head, you wrote this code, and you fed it into this mainframe, and you saw these printouts, and then you sat and edited. And then he'd come back with all this printouts and code, make notes, and sit with Knut the next morning. And it was amazing how much energy he had, and how at home he was with programming. I mean, this man encompassed amazing skills. He was as at home with what Knut was doing with his scripts, And Gopal Krishna Gandhi, he was about 80 then, crisp, erect. He wore a Gandhi topi, crisp white dhoti and kurta. He ran the Gujarati Type Foundry in Bombay, and he was at that conference. I said, this is amazing, that here's a man who's in his late 80s, who's attending this because he's worried about where do we go from here. And he runs a metal type foundry in Bombay, but an amazing eye for typography. He had very poor eyesight, so he'd look at proofs like this, and he could tell you any type you showed to him. I mean, he was a great type buff. He knew all about Bruce Rogers and just about anyone you could name, Gopal Krishna knew. And he was out there. So I said, this is quite amazing. You have two of the greatest people. I said, one steeped in commerce and passionate about Gujarati typography, and there's RK on the other hand, who's interested in the Indian letter form, is interested in technology. And there we were. I said, wow. So my stint at India Today ended in about end of 86, I got a job offer with The Economist in England, and I largely think it's because they were looking for cheap immigrant labor, and I kind of fit the bill. So that's how I ended up there. Not quite, really. Some interesting things were happening in England then. In '87, there was a huge standoff between publishing houses and the unions. It's probably one of the worst union confrontations in Britain's history. The print unions, there was a thing called an NGA, I think, the National Graphic Association, and SOGAT. And this is an interesting piece of news. NGA, which is the National Graphic Association, owned the rights to operate a computer keyboard in a newspaper environment. A journalist could not. So think of this. The Economist owned an ATEX system, exactly like we had at India Today, where every day the journalists would type. You know, they could key in. Everything they keyed in was ready to be paginated, and it could be, but no. At the end of the day, what they did had to be beamed across a leased line to a typesetting company, which would take out printouts and retype every word. And this was something the union said had to be done. So it was a big mess. It was a complete mess. I mean, there's no way the British newspaper industry could have survived because the economics was stacked against them. On a good week, a compositor that set type earned more than the editor of The Economist for working about half the time. So it was highly inflated, completely wrong. They were just not allowing anything to happen. So in all this, The Economist was a good employer, so he didn't want to confront its compositors. But they had the foresight to keep it as an independent company, not as part of The Economist itself, but as a wholly owned subsidiary that only did the typesetting for The Economist. And they were banking on someone like Murdoch to take on the unions and win this battle. And when Murdoch won the battle, the rest of the industry would follow and just bring in the technology. And it turned out Murdoch got a lot of help from Maggie Thatcher at the time, because Maggie Thatcher's government legislated to allow some of these unions not to be recognized. And the day that happened, it just changed the face of industry completely. Because the entire publishing houses, virtually all newspapers were based around Fleet Street. And the unions, they were cat's whiskers, so they didn't realize, they figured they controlled everything. And they worked with each other. So, if you mucked around with the guys who were into composing, then the distribution guys won't touch your papers and so forth. So it was a whole chain that constrained what the owners could do. But what Murdoch, who's very wily, had done, he had set up an entire operation in complete secrecy in a place called Wapping, which is in the east end of London. And he had brought in an ATEX publishing system, engineers from Australia and America. They worked in a warehouse in complete secrecy. He was ready to run with and produce a paper like this. And the unions figured, they had no idea it was done in such secrecy. They had no idea. And the day the unions broke, they figured Murdoch couldn't get a paper out, and he did. He sacked 5,000 people, and that he hired 400 who kind of left the unions and joined him, and they produced all the papers he needed. So this kind of gives you the background. And I suppose one of the ways I managed to get a job at The Economist was they were ready to kind of ride the technological bandwagon, but in the graphics and the arts department, they had no techie background, because I had kind of straddled both sides a bit. I had the good fortune of getting into technology at the time it was happening, so I learned on the job, not technological by training, but when you learn as you're going along, it helps. And I had that opportunity. So I knew a lot about the ATEX system and how its pagination is used. And that was really the skill they were looking for. And that's how I managed to get there. But I still couldn't do the work I had to do in England. I had to be sent off to America and work again in secrecy in an outfit in New Jersey and prepare the entire pagination project, because ATEX, The Economist hadn't managed to get rid of the unions completely. And it's only when that happened that we could come back and implement this project. So the part of the deal was we wanted to reap some of the benefits of desktop publishing and have complete design and systems integration. So that was the end of the print unions that allowed it all to happen. This is the man who enabled it, with a lot of help from Maggie Thatcher. I think if it was a long standoff, I think it was almost 18 months, and it was a nasty, nasty standoff. But the government stood behind. So this is the DTP Trinity, as I call them. I think Steve Jobs, Genshke, and Warnock, I think without the underlying work these three gentlemen did, we wouldn't have any of the advantages we have today. And so it's Apple, the laser writer, and PostScript. I think it's a combination of that that makes a lot of our lives extremely easy today. And another unsung hero, completely, Jim Warner. He wrote freehand and also photographer. Amazing mathematician, lovely guy. Came to England once, we had lunch, he came to The Economist. He's quite happy that The Economist were kind of using some of his applications. Very humble man, very nice man. So that was Jim. Well, later on, The Economist, after we had integrated everything, we moved to a typesetter called III. And this was part of the CRT with this cathode ray tube things. And the great advantages it offered was it allowed you to transmit your pages to different locations all over the world. The Economist was published in many parts of the world. So once the pages were done in London, you had to beam them to Singapore, Hong Kong, America, both the coasts of America and so forth for printing. And this was one device that allowed you to do it. But proprietary. And we were, to my eye, there was huge problems. I've deliberately not shown pages because I want to show you the enabling technologies behind what we do. It's easy to see pages and all that, and we've seen a lot of that. But so they allowed you to use only the fonts they had on their system. So there was this whole deal about proprietary system. I mean, PostScript fonts weren't ported across every system around. Now, in England, Europe, and America, The Economist was printed on glazed newsprint. And in the Far East, Singapore and Hong Kong, it was printed on not glazed newsprint, regular newsprint. And to my eye, the stuff with the ink spread you get on non-glazed newsprint made the type look just a little more robust and nice. So I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could have that same look replicated wherever we're using glazed newsprint? So how do we do it? And I said, well, all we need to do is like marginally thicken the type that's being used on the glazed newsprint. So imagine going from, this was the look I was getting on my glazed newsprint. That was about the look I was getting on non-glazed, but I wanted that look. So I said, if I can beef up my type, just that fraction, and use it for output in England and elsewhere, and you know how much they said it would cost me to do that? For one font, just Roman, $110,000. And so that's highway robbery. I mean, that's what you can get away with when you have a proprietary system. But then soon that fell apart gradually. PostScript photographer put an end to all of that. I made a case to the editor. I said, look, we've got all these new technologies, we've got new output devices, we could get a font for ourselves. And it would cost, because how do you pitch something like that? Because you don't know what you're going to get till you get it, and then it could be all wrong. So I said, you just have to say a comparative thing. I said, so if you get it completely wrong, it'll be no more than the cost of an ad. But then, and it is a great idea if it would work. But then the editor of The Economist is always going to be smarter than you, which he obviously is. So he says, you know what, I don't buy that argument, but I'll give you £10,000 to prove your thesis. And if you get that right, you can have whatever it takes to develop it. So I thought that was a great deal. And so I found I said, okay, so what does it take to do a font, a custom font? So I said, first, it requires a set of convictions about shape and form. And I'm looking at it in a broad sense. I mean, The Economist is largely a text-driven paper, so I wanted something that was very nice on the eyes. So it takes a conviction about shape and form, and then a lot of effort to resolve those minute details and achieve harmony in the proportion of that shape and form. And, you know, when you're designing a font, you think of it like proofreading shapes, because you've got to keep looking at it, but without a dictionary. See, when you're proofreading type, and you see a typo, and you're not sure if it's right or wrong, you look at a dictionary, and it tells you what the right spelling is. With shape, there's nothing like that. You've got to use your judgment. And it's never easy, you know. So you're always hedging. So it helps if you collaborate. And I had no better collaborator in this whole exercise than a man called S.E. Gunlauger S.E. Bream. Fantastic character. Modern day scribe. He could write. He could do calligraphy better than anyone. And for him, it didn't matter. He didn't need a quill. When he used to teach calligraphy, he'd often take a carrot, slice it, and start writing with it. And the letters he could produce were brilliant. He lived in Shepherd's Bush in London. And outside his house was the most gorgeous dustbin you'd ever see in Shepherd's Bush, because on this huge black bin, you had the most exquisite 21 Shepherd's Bush in calligraphy written on it all around. You know, so stuff like that, but yeah, great character. Rooted in tradition, completely at home in every form of writing, completely at home with technology, and for someone like from Iceland, you know, a complete stickler for precision, you know, in thought, speech, and form. I mean, you couldn't utter a word out of place and have him throttle you. So it was great. So Bream and I got on like a house on fire, and we collaborated on this. And the way it worked was, you know, we were given this £10,000 to prove our thesis. I'd asked Bream to come in as a designer on this project for a fee, and the deal was that I had to assign my rights to The Economist, and that he would also, and he was quite happy at the time to do that. So because it was a great opportunity. So we would start in my house. I lived in London at the time, in a place called Little Venice. He'd come to my house at 5 every morning. There were no laptops in those days, so he'd be lugging his SE in his hand, and he'd come into my house and he'd plunk it on the desk, and the office had given us a laser printer. And we'd sit and tinker on this tiny screen. And that's how we did our first test alphabet. And our first set of proofs, unfortunately, I don't have a printout of that. We called it a smoke proof for the editor, because in the olden days, when you developed a type, you actually took a proof, which is called a smoke proof. So our first proof of concept for this to the editor, we called a smoke proof. It came off a laser printer, 300 DPI. They were convinced, they liked it, and they went with it. And so we ended up with this font. The Economist Masthead, which was originally hand done by Reynolds Tone, we did as a font, which was the display light, and we had a heavier version of display. We had a Roman with a matching italic, a demi for emphasis within text, because I didn't want stuff that was inside running text to look too heavy. A bold for things like crossheads, real small caps, and so on. And at the time, this was a big deal, because, you know, most places just had a Roman italic and bold italic, no true caps, and so forth. And it seemed to work for us. We were happy, and this was a font that was used till about a little over 2000, when Eric Spiekermann basically tweaked it and gave it an Eric feel, which is he modified a few characters, changed the width, and so forth. But by and large, the underlying structure is the same. Thank God he didn't tinker much with the italic, which we were particularly happy with. We wanted it to be a bit calligraphic in look and flavor. And so that's what it happened. So now, why should we be designing type? I think largely to uphold a tradition. You know, it's something that was given to us. It's beholden upon us to give it to the people that follow. It will be very irresponsible not to do that. We need to preserve that tradition across emerging media and technologies, because if you look at it, We have tremendous variations in type today, but no one's ever been able to completely tinker with the shape of an A. You can't. You tinker too much, it's no longer an A. So in many ways, we are bound by convention. So we have to be honest to that convention. All we need to be able to do is use whatever tools we have at our hand to reveal subtle variations in a conventional form without distorting that meaning. And that's possible, because a lot of the shapes you're now seeing, see stuff that's coming out of commercial type foundry, Christian Schwartz. You see counters that are just so exquisite, something that nobody could have done some years ago. So we are still seeing designers' ability to actually do things with shape that, wow, you look at it and it's so subtle, it's so minute, but it's fresh, and it's great that these possibilities exist. And in the people that know how to tinker without destroying, there's a huge possibility ahead. And I think that's what you guys should be doing, and you have enormous possibilities. So think of it. You've got smart devices. You've got zero constraints, now at least relatively, very few constraints in resolution. You've got tablets. So, the possibilities are mindless, because I don't think the type you could ever dispense with. It's going to be with it. It has to be with us. There's no substitute to it. And at the end, why design type? I think to make the act of reading a pleasant experience for the eye. You want that aha feeling. Not to look at it, but to just feel, it feels good. I was able to read it without looking at it, and that's nice. And let me end with advice Ake offered to me once. He says, you know what? I asked him, what is it that one should do about type design? He said, well, in this great master fashion, he says, you should draw a line as if it is the only purposeful act of your life. And when you've mastered that, then begin to do a letter form. So until then, don't even try. So thank you, RK. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. You can have your seat, sir. And yeah. Yes.
Continue the question and answer session. Meanwhile, we will prepare the.
So that's like a journey across the universe through the eyes of somebody who's been there, done it in the nicest way. And all those pictures taken by him or taken by somebody he knew. And it's like being able to touch history. So you have an opportunity here to ask questions. They don't always have to be questions that need answers. They could be observations, it could be funny comments, they could be things that you think are stupid to ask, afraid to ask, didn't know who to ask, but you could. He can always give a stupid answer. You can fall in love with each other. Things can happen. So it's that kind of a forum. So it's freewheeling. It's about design. It's the last day. You can say anything and get away with it. You can be irreverent. And we just gave standing ovation to one of the youngest guys out here who did great work. So that set the pace. So please go ahead and ask what you wish to ask to Aravind. Do I see a raised hand anywhere? Sometimes when nothing comes out of the audience, it's because they've been stunned into silence. They take a little time to recover from the weight of the sheer weight of what we've just seen. It's almost as if you were making up these stories, but you weren't. Maybe you could say something that was not as weighty as all that. Some funny thing that Arun Puri once said to you, some backdoor gossip, something that will loosen them up, Aurobindo. You have to do this.
Well, I can, but some of it.
Maybe does. And
Well,
I know another thing to do. Okay, there's a question here, and I would like, where's Santosh? Shirsagar? All right. The last lines that RK said to Aurobindo, you have to act that out. Be prepared. Okay, the question. The question.
Hello, yes. I have a question about Uruguay.
Yeah.
You started saying that the story was starting in Uruguay.
Well, that's where Edward Johnson was born.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
he was born there. His parents they were Scottish, I think, probably missionaries, and that's where he grew up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are open for more questions, if anybody from the audience.
I'm not a typographer or a designer. I mean, I'm no way related to any kind of creativity.
Great.
But I'm I'm hearing about typography last 2 days, but I'm a language teacher. So during your journey, you've met so many designers, typographers, printers, and whatnot kind of people. But I'm sure you would have met some linguists, maybe.
Well, I haven't met
and
linguists.
Have they shared any kind of interaction between language and type and mutual whatever?
I haven't met linguists, but at The Economist, I worked with people who cherished the use of language, English language, the precision that it offers, the brevity with which it can be used. I've sat in on a meeting which spent 45 minutes discussing the merits and demerits of a semicolon. And you come out feeling so good. And to find, it's just that there's language is something that can be verbose and convey something. It can be brief and convey something more. And in the hands of the right people, The Economist writes particularly well. It really does. And they have a style book which is hilarious. You laugh when you read it. So they have things like, if yours is a live audience, have you considered what a dead one would be like? So call your audience an audience. It's stuff like that. So and it's great. When you hear stuff like that, you know these are masters of precision in communicating, to pack a lot in. And it helps. And when you're designing, say, a font or a page for them, it's a privilege. It really is a privilege because you're clothing something that has got so much effort behind it that you feel you're doing a worthwhile job.
Thank you. I liked the comment that you made about Donald Knuth and the fact that he would obsess about mathematical typesetting. And I think, actually, to sort of address that question, there are linguists as well who are, funnily enough, there aren't, for instance, I don't think any typeface exists that would be well designed for both mathematicians and linguists. There are very extensive fonts that are for maths, and there are also quite a few extensive fonts that are for linguists, because linguists are often obsessed with the little diacritical marks that are stacked on top of each other, and there can be, an A with a dash and a rounded thing and a dot. But there isn't any font that would work for both. I think it's still sort of like a next project, and even bigger typeface. Have you done any scientific publishing, actually?
I think you need to know enough math to be able to know what's not working. I couldn't look at a formula and be irked by it the way Knut is. Knut gets worked up when he sees bad composition. He really got worked up. There's a small video clip, if you do a search on Triple I, about Knut just crying. Why?
Well,
because
he essentially wrote tech
exactly
because he wanted to publish a book about maths.
Precisely.
And he sent it to the typesetters, and the output was so bad that he decided to write a typesetting system so he could typeset it himself.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what some people in typography are, yes, very, very much about.
Yeah, perfectionist. But it was great to see him and RK together, because there was a shared kind of respect. And RK was obsessed with this pressure-based thing, and he spent hours working on it. It was quite amazing. In those 7 days, I never saw him sleep. I don't know how he managed.
It's that time of the day when people are looking at their watches because they need to catch flights, trains, buses, people waiting for them. And yet they don't want to let go of a good thing. There is a good thing lined up here. I just wanted to add a little note to this connection between scientists and linguists and typographers. When in the era of the big machine, which ran on artificial intelligence, and they weren't able to crack this, a system that would let humans deal with machines pleasantly. Those at the Xerox Park sat and scratched their heads, and you had people like Engelbart and Bill Buxton and others who essentially designed all of the keyboard, everything that we have today were designed there, input devices, computing systems, everything. And they said, well, nothing is working. We need to make the computer speak in the way human beings speak, which is natural language. How can you do that? So the simple thing to do is to shut down all computers and go back to understanding how human beings speak. And to do that, they then went to an area called hermeneutics, which is the interpretation of languages, a stream, a branch called hermeneutics. And that's when they finally cracked how to make the computer speak like humans, and not how to make humans speak like computers. And then riding on the back of hermeneutics came what we have today, the desktop, which is direct manipulation, which is what they did at The Economist. The journalist, or India Today, the journalist could be the compositor. You didn't need the programmer to come first load these reams and reams of sheets of programming.
One time.
One time.
Yeah.
But then that changed forever with desktop. And then today, it's gone all the way where we are doing hermeneutics ourselves, because we are composing code as we build content, right? So, that's just a little addition on the side. But to this great presentation we had, let's give a hand.
Oh, just a small aside up.
Okay.
Just a small bit of American paranoia. Sorry to my American friends. PDP-11, which is what the ATEX had at its heart, had a lot of defense applications. So when India Today first bought the system, they said we need Defense Department clearance. And they took 6 months because they were worried some guys in India would reverse engineer and make this publishing system into some bomb-making device. So it took us 6 months of persuading the Defense Department that we were just interested in publishing a magazine, not reverse engineering a computer.
So we take that as a compliment, Aurobindo. We don't always get compliments from the uncle there. So and thank you for that. It can become like one of our little jokes we crack, right? Yes. And just to share a little bit, just to extend that joke, and I'm not talking about, sorry to our American friends, but things are changing. In the 120-year-old tradition of Harvard Business School, the present director is the guy I hung out with in IIT students, and I was the only woman who could get along with. That's Nitin Noria. So we are changing things a little bit. So on that note, Aurobindo, thanks for this wonderful, wonderful journey, this trajectory that you revealed. A lot of people over here were asking Sujit and others, where was he all this while? And I said he was, for the last 10 years, he was in Bombay, in Chowpatty, and he started laughing. He burst into laughter. So you managed to remain invisible because you were all over, right? You just like a monk's, monk's den, you hid away, and you did your stuff.
Don't tell my wife that.
We're not going to say anything. We won't tell her you were here today. About to pick up an award. So we are now readying ourselves to for the next act, which is to impart on Aurobindo Patel a Lifetime's Achievement Award. So let's take him onto the stage and let's cheer him for all the work done.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And now we progress towards our award ceremony, and we request all our dignitaries to please ascend the stage along with Professor Aurobindo Patel. I would kindly request Mr. Sudarshan Dheer, our guest of honor, to please come up on the stage.
Professor Ravi Puvaya, sir.
Mr. Sujit Patwardhan, sir.
Professor Vinay Mundada, sir.
And our very own Professor Manohar Desai, sir. Thank you so much.
We request Professor Puvaya to please take the mic and tell us about his experience of Typoday 2014.
Hi everyone. We started Typoday 6 years back at IDC, IIT Bombay. Every 4 years we bring it back to IIT. Every other day it's held in a different institution. So we've had it at MIT Institute of Design in Pune, then at the Sir JJ School of Applied Arts in Mumbai, then on to the National Institute of Design in Ahmedabad, then last year it was at the Department of Design at IIT Guwahati, and this year it's been at Symbiosis. It's usually a tradition to announce the next venue, but we're kind of keeping it a bit of suspense. Okay, we're going to end, it's going to be in the south. We'll announce it at the end of this month. Okay, and we've also had so much of, requests for, hosting the event. So we're going to have as a link in our typoday.in website, a link to the, for you to suggest a proposal if you want to hold the Typoday event. Just as an announcement, also all the presentations as well as the abstracts and the papers will be uploaded on the web space. Okay, and you've been a great audience. Okay, so thanks a lot for making it a wonderful event. Okay, and also I need to thank the host institutes, the Symbiosis Institute, for being a great host. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to felicitate the winners of the poster competition held for Typography International Conference 2014, which saw entries more than 300 from across the world, and out of them, the 27 best posters are awarded this evening. So now we would like to call upon again Professor Ravi Puvaya, sir, to please do the honors and present the award to all the winners of the Typography International Conference Poster Competition 2014. And to start with, ladies and gentlemen, it's Patricia Al-Masi from Lebanon. Can we have her on stage, please?
Next, Leena Deepak Murdeshwar from India.
Next participant, ladies and gentlemen, is Blaise Bolemon from USA.
Bethany Faulkner from USA.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for these winners, please? Our next winner is Alex Harris from UK.
And next, Melaik Taskioglu from Turkey.
Our next winner, Mohammad Reza from Iran.
Next, Lily Her from USA.
Our next winner, Macklin Fraser from USA.
Next winner, May Sam from Iran.
Our next winner, Masood Pourzeri from Iran.
And next, Lai Ho Nam from Hong Kong.
Our next winner, Ozgur Alikin from Turkey.
Next winners, Divya and Pavitra from India.
Our next winner, Hannah Lee Hui Nin from Singapore.
Next winner, Ali Alania Samoksh from Iran.
Our next winner, Dora Ola from Hungary.
Next winner, Evren Tural from Turkey.
Our next winner, Mariam Monirifar from Iran.
Next, Blue Lee from Hong Kong.
Our next winner, Nasrullah Khan from India.
Next winner, Syed Abbas Bagheri from Iran.
Our next winner, Melissa Elhaz from Lebanon.
Next winner, Lamy from China.
And our next winner is Alex Bonner from USA. And ladies and gentlemen, the winner of the overall competition, and that is Sina Fakor from Iran. Thank you so much, sir, and congratulations to all.
We now request Professor Sujit Patwajan to please do the honors and present the awards to all winners of the Typography International Conference logo competition.
And the third runner-up of this logo competition is Bhupendra Manchekar.
The second runner-up is Rahul Thorat.
The first runner-up is Aditya Roth.
And the winner of the Typography International Conference logo competition 2014 is our very own Sachit Shyam from Symbiosis Institute of Design.
Thank you so much, sir, and congratulations, everybody.
And thus now, the Conference Book of Typoday 2014 is a limited edition print which contains a compilation of this year's conference proceedings. It contains information on our esteemed speakers, our student workshop of day 1, conference presentation abstracts. Also available with it is a digital copy of the book with 32 shortlisted posters of the poster competition and poster presentations of selected participants. And ladies and gentlemen, For the typo book release, I would like to call upon Sudarshan Dheer sir on the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the typo book release by the hands of Professor Sudarshan Dheer. Thank you so much, sir. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Lifetime Achievement Award. Aurobind Patel, a latecomer to typography, having strayed into its captivating web during a publishing project while a student at Harvard Business School. This led him to the rather foolhardy move to quit business school to study design. In hindsight, he concedes this would not have been possible without the sense of untested confidence that plagued many a business school student.
An early revelation in his design education was understanding that the roots of typography lay buried in handwriting and well-formed shapes. Little did he realize that all the mindless copybook writing that formed part of his early schooling, half an hour each morning before assembly, would actually form the basis to appreciate the finer points of typography later in life.
In 1982, he joined India Today in Delhi and led the gradual process of revising its design while helping a technical team to implement a TEX, the first magazine pagination system in the country. The visual appeal that made India Today stand apart from its competitions was largely enabled by the technology supporting its production.
India Today's success earned him an offer from The Economist in London. He served as the paper design director from 1987 to 1999, straddling his passion for both design and technology. In 1990, jointly with Gunlagur Braham, an outstanding type designer, he designed Ecotype, a family of text faces now used by the paper. The two also went on to the design Times Millennium, a digital avatar of the eponymous Times Roman, for the Times newspaper in London. Back in India since 2000, Aurobind divides his time between design assignments and gazing at forms and counterforms.
So, ladies and gentlemen, for a man of thoughts, a man of vision, a man of present, future, and definitely design, it gives us immense pleasure to announce the Lifetime Achievement Awardee for Typoday International Conference 2014, Mr. Aurobind Patel. And a request, ladies and gentlemen, I request our guest of honor, Mr. Sudarshan Dheer, to present the award to Mr. Aurobind Patel. Mr. Dheer will be facilitating Aurobind Patel with a Puneri Pagri, a shawl, and a certificate with a momentum.
We want one photograph. This is the momentum. Yeah, we will check in the
Thank you so much, sir.
We now invite Professor Manohar Desai to please give the vote of thanks and conclude the event.
All dignitaries on the dais and the audience, those who have witnessed this event. From last 3 days, you all really enjoyed the event. But behind this conference, many students were working from last around 6 to 7 months. And we tried a lot to make the event successful. Wherever you see the perfection, the well-organizedness, I give that complete credit to the team, the IDC team, Symbiosis University. Wherever you see mistakes or some mismanagement, as organizing secretary, I will accept those responsibilities on me. I especially like to thank all institutes, those who participated in the exhibition, all the sponsors, especially Adobe, FontLab, India's Aksharaya, Design India, Creative Gaga Magazine, Oxilica Waters, SIDAC, and many more people. So friends, it is now really difficult for me to see my next day, because from last 6 months, I was completely under pressure to organize this event. I was continuously in touch with Ravi and many other team members of Typography Day, especially Santosh, Girish, then Shri Kumar. So the entire event is and success of all people's blessings, all people's supports, and again the excellent participation and registration from the various parts of the world. So I'm really thankful to all of you, and I hope we will definitely continue the same kind of Typography Day with the next host institute. And yes, now the entire Symbiosis team is also excited to join the next host institute to share our experiences, and we will definitely support and participate the next Typography Day. Thank you very much.
And finally, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank each one of you for the participation that you have shown for us. And on behalf of Symbiosis Institute of Design, I would like to thank all the dignitaries, all the colleges who have participated in these, and all the members who have come from different parts of the world and have made this Typoday a real successful event. And before I leave, I would also like to announce that there is a FontLab workshop which is being hosted by Symbiosis Institute of Design on the 3rd, 4th and 5th of March. And we are having, on the registration desk, you can get all the information required for the same, and you can register for yourself for the same at the registration desk down below. Thank you so much.
Tea and snacks are arranged down. Then is for